also been compelled to stay at home during the lockdown have been asking many questions. They've not been able to go to school, to visit grandparents and their friends. But thanks to the African Animation Studio, they've been producing an animation series targeted at children to help with the COVID-19 messaging. Firdoze Bulbulia joins us now. Firdoze, very good afternoon to you. What is Josie's Wonderful World about?
So Josie's Wonderful World was really for Josie to go out there and to explore this wonderful world. But just before lockdown, we realized that Josie could not leave the house. She could not explore her wonderful world. And as she tumbles out to the window, she is told to stay at home. This is really very scary for young people and for children in particular. So we at the African Animation Studio wanted to be able to talk to children and their caregivers about what it means to stay home, why this virus is a pandemic, and what they have to do. And so, during the 911 and the tsunami, we found that South African broadcasters didn't really talk to children about these huge events that took place. And children get really scared because they feel the anxiety of their parents, their caregivers, the people around them, and they misunderstand what it is, that is happening. So what we tried to do as part of the Children and Broadcasting Foundation for Africa was really to say that we have to put children in the center. We have to give them the information, and we need to do it in bite sizes, in an entertaining way, so that they're not afraid, they're not scared, they don't feel the anxiety of their parents. So that's what Josie does. She goes out there and she explains to children why they needed to stay at home. We produced 12 of these little animations. They're between 40 and 60 seconds long. And in each one, it was first stay at home, wash your hands, wear a mask, etc.
It seems like such an important platform and conversation. How are children accessing it? Are you able to get to bigger numbers?
Well, we've been very lucky. I mean, we started off just sending it to schools because most schools have their teachers on WhatsApp, which I didn't really realize, which was excellent. So it went through schools. We've managed to get it very luckily onto the health department's website, and the minister has tweeted them. So since Josie came out, the minister has been tweeting and retweeting, and he actually talks to Josie, which has been fantastic for us. We now have it on ETV and SABC. All three channels will be carrying it very, very soon. With the one that you've just shown right now, we decided that with all the fear around going back to school, we needed Josie to get excited about learning. And so we're hoping that this one will go out for Africa Day because it talks about our continent, Africa, and asks Josie's brother Musa about all the different countries in Africa.
Are you worried that there are children who are not getting access to this wonderful story?
I am. I'm really concerned because as it is, we are producing them at our own cost. I'd like to just say a little bit about the Africa Animation Studio. We started in April last year, directly as a result of the film summit that South Africa hosted through the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. And we've been trying to raise budget so that we can have a fully fledged African animation studio. As you know, animation is a very good way of teaching children. Absolutely. And it's probably going to be bigger than just film per se.
Yeah.
But the struggle to raise budget for that has been enormous. So what I decided was that since the team would be at home, people could become quite depressed if they're not doing anything. And so we just pushed in our resources and begun the series. We would like to have support. We would really, be happy if there are people out there who see this as an important aspect of children's learning. In fact, we've just managed now to speak to the Department of Basic Education, and we've sent it to them. We hope that they would receive it and send it out, to schools. We've had very good response on Facebook. We are also on YouTube. Principals of schools have contacted me to say, this is fantastic. This is such an easy way to explain to children what is happening. Please, 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 can we get these? So I'm really very happy that you are talking to us as well today so that hopefully more people will see it and they'll know that the series is available. It is on YouTube, so it's free, for adults, for children, for their parents, for caregivers, for school teachers. We really want people to please really have a look at the series.
So now, as fate would have it, one of your first productions is about this very important conversation and messaging, which doesn't only affect times now, but it is expected to go on into the future. How do you expect to sustain this story?
So when we started, the animation was meant to be an animation series about language, culture, environment, health, etc.
Yeah.
With the virus having started, we thought, okay, the focus needed to be on the virus. And we know that this virus is going to be with us at least for the next 18 months to 2 years before we get a vaccine. So what we want to do is to pepper it anyway with learning, with enjoyment, with Josie now discovering the continent of Africa. Once they've spoken about all the countries with the last video that you've just shown, I was saying we should also look at some of, whether it's the pyramids, the Nile, all the exciting places that Josie could still learn about, even if she cannot actually get there. Our very recent one we're doing is called Josie, and we are likening it to Shoma Josie. And here, my brother, who works in the Premier's Office on Disability, Firdoze Bulbulia, he challenged me and he said, "You're talking about children, but you haven't discussed the disability sector. Do you know how much more difficult it is for children who are disabled, for those of us who are on wheelchairs?"
Absolutely.
You know that the virus, as we worry about our clothes and our shoes, think about the wheelchair and how that has to be sanitized. So now we have a new character called Josie. And she's just wonderful and excited, and she's now Josie's best friend. And they will go about talking, about the concerns that the disability sector has. This is also to sensitize other children to know, I'm depressed, I'm feeling anxious, I'm concerned. What about my friends? And in the segment that you just saw now, we also had children do some live action. So we have children who they can open a tap and there's running water. But what about the rural communities? What about the township communities? What about places where water is such a scarce commodity? So we've also asked children, because with mobile phones, it's so easy these days. We've had all these little sound bites from different children, but also little animations that we've added to our bigger animation. So stories of children, live action. We had UNICEF come on board to support us. We had Tekano. So we're just asking different NGOs to come in, and there's no budget, there's no payment, but they are able to get the children through their parents to take little films and clips and send it back to us, and we're embedding those in the animation.
Josie herself looks like such... Yeah, continue.
No, go ahead.
That's just saying that Josie... You go.
I'm going to allow you. Oh, okay, I'll go. So yes, Josie, went through a real process. When the animators began to draw Josie, I was saying to them that we really need to test. We don't do, in South Africa, we don't do enough testing around children's content.
Yeah.
As the Children and Broadcasting Foundation for Africa, we say that children should hear, see, and express themselves, their languages, their cultures, through the electronic media that reaffirms their sense of self, community, and place. It's really important for children to see themselves and hear themselves. And this is another addition, is language. We have the first animation that just spoke about the virus. We've had that in Sepedi as well as in Kiswahili. But we really do need to ensure that we can get more languages, because I think this is also important. If we're talking to that age group between 4 to 6 years old, we need to have the mother tongue as well. So there's another challenge around ensuring that language is there. But also, if you look at Josie, if you look at her face, if you look at there's so much embedded in that animation, and we want parents and teachers and caregivers to really deconstruct her, look at her, talk about her to the children who are viewing, and see what they have to say. And we've had children write to us. There were little ones who said, "Josie's too short. Please, 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 we want some more."
Yeah.
And that has been really fantastic, because that is really our audience. And they've really enjoyed it. Some of them are just singing Josie's little songs and singing her praises and sending it to us. So there's the little virus, as you can see, and how they need to cough. And Musa, who's the sidekick brother, has in fact become the main. Everybody wants Musa. Every time we put out an animation and they don't see Musa, I get little tweets or I get, SMSs.
Yeah, family is important,
Musa?
right?
We want Musa. Exactly.
Yeah, actually, you've partly answered the question I wanted to ask you, because I wanted to say she looks like such a delightful, adorable character. Just in terms of character development, how did you make sure that she's inclusive and she's relatable to any child that might access this content?
So we work with a young group of animators. The main organization and company is called Popeye, and they've been around for about 5 years. What I really wanted was for the character to go into the communities. So when they began, creating the character with all of us together, I then said that we needed to bring in groups of children from different communities. So this would be, the suburbs as well as the township communities. Ensure that the children feel and they relate to her. And if you look at, the initial drawings, there's a huge difference in what she is now. And this is because children participated in what they wanted to see in terms of the character. I think animation is an exciting medium. But as you know, we are inundated with a lot of Chinese or Asian animation. How do we begin to draw African children? I think this is our huge challenge. And hence, with the African Animation Studio, we want to focus on quality animation for African children. The continent of Africa is large, but there are African children all over the world. And they need to be able to see themselves. And so this was really important for us to test the characters and to test little Musa, and to test the voices and know that, are other children going to enjoy this? Do they think that she's good enough? That was really important to us.
Firdoze, how are you doing in terms of skills? Because animation is a very, specific skill area. Are you getting proper skills here in the country?
There are a few animation schools in South Africa. What we find, though, is that the focus is not really Pan-African. So even when they are being trained, it is very much with a Western view. We have now 10 animators, and we've got about 5 to 7 interns. So even though they've learned the basic animation, we're bringing them in through the process so they could really get an understanding of Pan-Africa. This team, in fact, last year we hosted the Zanzibar International Film Festival, and this team came with us. So you can see all the pictures behind me, all of Zanzibar, all of those characters. Can you see the mountain behind me?
Yeah, we don't have them now.
Well, just where I'm sitting right now, if you look at me, I have all these pictures in my background.
Okay, yeah. You see those
I'm sure people can see that on the screen. So that was really, those are different forms of animation. They're different illustrations. So the team that produced this animation came with us to Zanzibar, and they began to see, so not only the fact that we all are African and look at us, how differently we look, but also to consider issues like the hijab. So there's a point at some point where we have Wazi also dressed up in the hijab, which is the Islamic dress. We know that currently it is Ramadan. So we also want to ensure that our children and the caregivers, and particularly the animators, are familiar with all of the different aspects of being African, which includes your culture, your tradition, your race, your gender, and your religion.
What I totally love about our conversation is that as we approach Africa Day, we're bringing in a totally new conversation, animation focusing specifically on African continent. Very exciting.
Yes, and I think that is important. I think that's going to be the new, the new buzzword is going to be African animation. As if you remember, at some point it was Nollywood, that we had Hollywood and Bollywood, and now we have Nollywood, the Nigerian film industry. But I think there's a great opportunity for collaboration and co-production on the continent. We work with different partners. I'm part of the African Film Consortium. And in that process, we are ensuring that there are partnerships and co-productions. So from a content perspective, that we begin to show our children animations from North, South, East, West Africa, that our children begin to see themselves in other places as well. I think this is important. And so with Africa Day coming along, our focus with the last one was for little Wazi and her brother Musa to learn about the continent. And, there was a time, I chair the Children's Broadcasting Foundation for Africa, and we started in 1994-95. Yeah, I helped with drawing up the South African Children's Charter. So our work goes very far back. It's very deep. We've been working in the sector for decades, and it's really important for us to ensure, as I said earlier, that the children really do see themselves in the work that we do. But what is exciting for me as well is that some of the people that we started off with had actually gone into film and gone into media and now are into animation. So they have that history. They have been supported through our work, and they understand the importance, not just about being in front of the camera, but behind the camera, so that you are true storytellers, and that it is, it's a buzzword, this authentic voice. But I think it is so important that as Africans, we are given that authentic voice, and that we see each other in the diversity of who we are.
So Firdoze, aside from the story of Wazi, considering all the other work you do in the space of children, the big conversation, one of the conversations since the lockdown, has been about the rights of different sectors of community, whether it's the rights of homeless people or the rights of people with disabilities. What conversations are we having about the rights of children?
I penned something on Facebook yesterday, and I was quite surprised by the number of people who responded to it. And I just said we are kind of suspended. We're suspended in this place and time and space. And my biggest, I don't want to use annoyance, but my concern are the long lines of people who are standing, not to be voting as when we did in '94, but standing for food parcels. And the amount of pictures that people are taking without permission of children, really without dignity and integrity. You're taking pictures of children receiving food parcels, or their parents, or their grandparents. It breaks my heart to think that as a country as rich and well-resourced as we are, that our people have to stand in those queues. I feel emotional when I think about it. And the fact that those of us who are giving, which is really, really important, and I know that some people say they need the pictures because they need to show it to the funders. I plead with you, please stop taking those drone pictures. Please stop pushing a camera in a child's face to show us hunger and poverty. We know the face of poverty in this country. It comes to the disability sector, it comes to the people living on the streets, it comes to the homeless people. When we drew up the South African Children's Charter in 1993, we did this in Somerset West in the Western Cape. And we were in this fancy 5-star hotel, and there were children who were homeless. And one of the kids, as we kept talking about the homeless children, one of the kids said to us, "No child is homeless." It's emotional because every child should be born with a home in a home. UNICEF talks about the rights of children. Children have a right to a name, to a home, to shelter, to food. If our government can realize that that is their responsibility, that suddenly we have water. For 26 years, there was no water in so many communities. Now they're rolling out water. Can we put our priorities right? Can we make sure that the children and their parents in the most difficult circumstances are given what we all have in wherever else we are? It is really demeaning, it is shocking, and it is disappointing that 26 years later, we sit like this in our fancy homes and we watch people in long lines looking for food. It is really, really sad. I think that if all of us, if there's something that we can do, is as we see the generosity of spirit and we see the kindness of people, but I also think that the photographs, you don't take a picture of poverty. It's just it's just not right. And for those of us who think, I work in media, this is my work, I know about an image tells 1,000 words, I understand that. But what is more important here is the integrity and the dignity of our people. And if we can ensure that, and if we can stop, posing next to this, I think then that's one way that we've done something positive. The other thing is, in your circle, in your neighborhood, we always said charity begins at home. Why are we centralizing food parcels? Why are we deciding that people need to go to a particular spot? Why are we deciding who can and can't give out food? This is what we do anyway. This is what people have been doing for yonks. People do that They give where they can. Why has government decided that it needs to structure it and centralize it?
Yeah.
Why is it that we're giving the same kind of food? Why is it that we're not giving nutritious food? I'm sorry, there I am.
You're a typical activist. If one allows you to speak, you will go on. But let's commend you for all the wonderful work you're continuing to do with children, and all the best with the African Animation Studio.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this time to celebrate the work that we do.
Firdoze Bulbulia there from the African Animation Studio, talking to us about the wonderful world of Wazi, an animation series aimed at children. Let's take a break.